The echo from the void. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Alliance was silent for the first time in centuries. 12 representatives from the most advanced species in the known universe sat motionless, their varied anatomies frozen in a shared emotion. Despair. High Chancellor Zorn of the crystalline Lumeri people rose from his seat, his translucent body reflecting the dim emergency lights that had replaced the chamber's usual brilliant illumination. "The Devourer has claimed the Proxima system," he announced, his voice carrying none of the musical tones typical of his species. "That makes 17 populated worlds in the past stellar cycle. Our defensive perimeter has collapsed." Across the circular table, General Vectra slammed her 4 arms down simultaneously. The insectoid warrior's exoskeleton rattled with fury. "We deploy our entire 7th Fleet, 10,000 ships, our most advanced weaponry, and the finest pilots in the quadrant. Not a single transmission was received after they engage." Ambassador Trellix, the eldest of the aquatic Mershai, bubbled mournfully through his breathing apparatus. "The pattern is consistent with all previous encounters. The Devourer appears, begins consuming all matter and energy in its path, and continues until nothing remains. It does not communicate. It does not negotiate. It simply consumes." The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed the grim reality. A massive dark entity the size of a small moon was steadily progressing through the Alliance territory, leaving nothing in its wake. Not debris, not radiation, nothing but perfect void. "Our scientists have exhausted all options," reported Chief Researcher Lan, her long, graceful neck bending in defeat. "The Devourer operates on principles that defy our understanding of physics. It absorbs all forms of energy we direct at it, growing stronger with each attempt." The silence returned, heavier than before. "There is one possibility we have not considered," came a raspy voice from the far end of the table. All eyes turned to Archivist Quell. The small, hunched figure rarely spoke during council proceedings. "Speak, Archivist," Chancellor Zorn permitted. Quell's ancient hands trembled as he activated a personal datavat. "In the oldest archives, before the formation of our alliance, there are references to another species that once inhabited this galaxy, a species called humans." Dismissive murmurs filled the chamber. "Myths and legends," scoffed General Vectra. "There is no evidence such beings ever existed." "Not myths," Quell insisted, his voice finding strength. "I have spent my lifetime studying the fragments. They were real, and they possessed understanding beyond our own. The ancient texts speak of their ability to solve problems that defied logical solutions." "And where are these miraculous beings now?" demanded Ambassador Trellix. "Gone," Quell replied simply. "The records suggest they vanished approximately 3,000 cycles ago, shortly after helping establish the early foundations of what would become our alliance. But before they disappeared, they left something behind." The archivist's fingers danced across his datavat, and the holographic display shifted to show a strange geometric pattern. "This is the Echo Protocol. According to the archives, it was a signal designed by humans to be used only in the most dire circumstances, when the galaxy itself faced extinction." Chancellor Zorn studied the pattern. "And you believe this protocol might summon these humans after 3 millennia?" "I believe it is our last hope," Quell said. The debate raged for hours. Some council members dismissed the idea as foolishness born of desperation. Others argued they had nothing to lose. In the end, desperation prevailed. 3 days later, the Alliance's most powerful transmission array, located on the moon of Helios Prime, was reconfigured to broadcast the Echo Protocol into the darkness of space. The signal contained no words, no pleas for help, only the precise mathematical pattern from the ancient archives. For weeks, nothing happened. The Devourer continued its inexorable advance, consuming the outer colonies one by one. Alliance citizens began the grim process of evacuation, though everyone knew there would soon be nowhere left to flee. Then, Exactly 42 days after the signal was sent, every communication device in Alliance space simultaneously received the same message. Echo received. Coordinates confirmed. Hold position. We are coming. The message was followed by a string of coordinates pointing to an uninhabited region of space near the galactic rim. Scans of the area showed nothing unusual until a spatial anomaly began to form. At first, Alliance scientists believed it was a simple wormhole, but its properties matched no known phenomenon. The anomaly expanded, contracted, and then stabilized into a swirling vortex of blue-white energy. From within this impossible gateway emerged a single ship. It was unlike any vessel the Alliance had ever seen, neither sleek like Lumari craft, nor angular like Vectran warships. It was almost crude in appearance, with exposed structural elements and visible repair patches. It was small, perhaps the size of a mid-range scout vessel, and bore no visible weapon systems. The ship transmitted no identification codes. It responded to no hails. It simply moved through space with purpose, directly toward Helios Prime. Defense systems across the moon activated automatically, targeting the unknown vessel. Before anyone could give the order to fire, every system mysteriously powered down. Communications, weapons, shields, all disabled without explanation. On the surface of Helios Prime, Alliance security forces surrounded the landing pad where the strange ship had settled. From its belly emerged a single figure, walking steadily down the ramp. The being wore a sealed environmental suit that concealed its features, but its form was unmistakably bipedal, with 2 arms and a head of normal proportions. It moved with fluid grace despite the obvious heaviness of its suit. Chancellor Zorn himself had traveled to Helios Prime to meet this visitor. As the figure approached, he stepped forward, arms spread wide in the universal gesture of peaceful intent. "I am High Chancellor Zorn of the Galactic Alliance. We welcome you and thank you for responding to our signal." The figure stopped a few paces away. With deliberate movements, it raised its hands to its helmet and twisted. There was a soft hiss of equalizing pressure, and the helmet was removed. The face revealed was startlingly simple: 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, all arranged on a smooth, hairless head. The skin was pale brown, marked with fine lines around the eyes and mouth. Those eyes, dark and intense, studied Zorn with unsettling intelligence. "Captain Ilara Chen," the being said, its voice surprisingly clear and melodious. "Last commander of the Earth Defense Force, I believe you have a problem." The news spread across Alliance space with unprecedented speed. A human had arrived. A living, breathing member of a species many had dismissed as legendary. Hope, that most dangerous of emotions, began to flicker among the desperate citizens of the Alliance. In the secure conference room of the Helios Prime Command Center, Captain Chen faced the hastily assembled council members. She had exchanged her environmental suit for a simple gray uniform bearing unfamiliar insignia. Up close, she appeared even more alien, her movements quick and precise, her expressions subtle but constant. "You broadcast the ICO protocol," she said without preamble. "That signal was meant to be used only in the event of total galactic extinction risk. Is that what we're facing?" Chancellor Zorn nodded gravely. "We call it the Devourer. It appeared at the edge of our territory 16 months ago and has been consuming everything in its path. Planets, stars, even the void between them. Nothing we've tried has slowed it." Captain Chen's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Show me." The holographic display activated, showing the massive dark entity as it engulfed a distant star system. The human watched in silence, occasionally asking for specific data points or alternate sensor readings. "Have you tried communicating with it?" she asked. General Vectra clicked her mandibles in frustration. "In every conceivable way, it gives no response. Direct confrontation, obliteration of our forces, evacuation." Ambassador Trellix bubbled sadly. "The Alliance comprises over 400 inhabited worlds. We have nowhere to move such populations." Captain Chen nodded, as if these answers were expected. And what about the threshold protocol? Was that attempted? The council members exchanged confused glances. We are not familiar with this protocol, admitted Chancellor Zorn. A faint smile touched the human's lips. No, you wouldn't be. The knowledge was deliberately withheld. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. General Vectra leaned forward aggressively. What are you implying, human? That your kind kept secrets that could have saved us. That's exactly what I'm saying, Captain Chen replied calmly. Because we knew this day would come. Chief Researcher Land's eyes widened. You've encountered this entity before. Not this specific manifestation, but others like it, Chen confirmed. We called them void entities, dimensional anomalies that feed on matter and energy. They appear when the barriers between realities grow thin. If you knew of these threats, why did humans vanish from the galaxy? Demanded Chancellor Zorn. Why abandon us to face this alone? Captain Chen's expression hardened. We didn't abandon you. We sacrificed ourselves to protect you. The human activated a small device on her wrist, projecting her own data into the room's holographic system. It showed an ancient star chart of the galaxy, with several pulsing red points scattered throughout. 3,000 years ago, our scientists detected the first signs of dimensional instability. We realized that void entities would eventually begin manifesting, drawn to concentrations of advanced technology and energy production. The display shifted to show Earth, a blue-green world that looked remarkably hospitable. Our presence was the catalyst. Human technology operated on principles fundamentally different from other species. We discovered that our particular approach to faster-than-light travel was creating micro-fractures in space-time. So you left? Asked Archivist Quell, his voice quavering. We did what was necessary, Chen said firmly. We dismantled our civilization, erased most evidence of our existence, and established a quarantine zone around Earth and our colonies. The vast majority of humanity entered stasis chambers in a pocket dimension, where our technology wouldn't affect normal space. But you're here now, observed Chancellor Zorn. Captain Chen nodded solemnly. Because the Echo Protocol means the situation has progressed beyond containment. The void entity you face is orders of magnitude larger than any we encountered. It's consumed enough energy now that even if we removed all human technology from the galaxy, it would continue to grow. Then we are truly doomed, whispered Ambassador Trellix. Not necessarily, Captain Chen replied, her voice suddenly sharp with determination. My ship contains the combined knowledge of human science and 3,000 years of research from within our dimensional pocket. We developed strategies for dealing with void entities. None have been tested on something of this scale, but the principles should hold. Hope flickered across the alien faces around the table. What do you need from us? Asked Chancellor Zorn. Captain Chen's gaze swept the room, meeting each council member's eyes in turn. First, your trust, which I know won't come easily. Second, access to your most advanced manufacturing facilities. And third, she paused, I need volunteers willing to pilot ships on a mission with minimal chance of survival. The chamber erupted in voices, but above them all, General Vectra's commanding tone cut through. I will volunteer my best pilots. Captain Chen shook her head. Not your best. I need your most creative, your most unpredictable. Those who think in ways that defy your training and protocols. The council stared at her in confusion. Logical, predictable responses are what the void entity expects, Chen explained. It's how it's been able to counter all your attacks so far. What we need now is something it cannot predict. The chaotic, illogical spark that has always been humanity's greatest weapon. As the meeting continued deep into the night, a plan began to take shape. It was dangerous, possibly suicidal, and relied on principles of physics that the Alliance's brightest minds struggled to comprehend. But for the first time since the Devourer appeared, they had something they'd almost forgotten. They had hope. The fire of humanity. 3 days after Captain Ilara Chen's arrival, the Helios Prime shipyards hummed with unprecedented activity. Manufacturing facilities that normally required months of preparation were reconfigured in hours. Thousands of engineers and scientists worked around the clock, following designs transmitted from the human's vessel. At the center of this controlled chaos stood Chen herself, seemingly tireless despite having slept only a few hours since her arrival. She moved from station to station, examining components, correcting errors, and occasionally demonstrating techniques that left Alliance experts baffled. "It's not physically possible," protested Chief Engineer Drav as he watched Chen manually recalibrate a quantum stabilizer. "The tolerances you're achieving shouldn't be attainable with these tools. Most limitations are perceptual, not actual," Chen replied without looking up from her work. "Your technology is remarkable, but you've optimized for consistency and safety rather than pushing boundaries." General Vectra approached, mandibles clicking thoughtfully as she observed the human's work. "My pilots are assembled as requested, Captain. 20 volunteers, each one considered problematic by traditional military standards." Chen straightened, a smile touching her lips. "Perfect. I'll meet them in 1 hour. They're anxious to know the details of this mission," the general added. "Better they don't have time to overthink it," Chen responded. "The void entity processes information faster than any computer. Standard battle strategies become predictable within seconds of engagement. We need individuals who act on instinct, who make leaps of logic that defy rational analysis." "Like humans," Vectra observed. For a moment, something vulnerable flickered across Chen's face. "Yes, like humans once were." The shipyard's central hangar had been cleared for the meeting. 20 pilots from across the Alliance species stood at attention as Captain Chen entered, followed by the council members. The diversity was striking. From the hulking, four-armed Vectrans to the delicate, crystalline Lumari, each brought different physiologies and capabilities to the mission. Chen walked slowly down the line, studying each volunteer with penetrating intensity. She stopped before a young Mershai, whose scales rippled with nervous energy. "Your record says you were disciplined for abandoning formation during the Battle of Nexus Prime," Chen said. The Mershai's gills fluttered anxiously. "Yes, Captain. I saw a pattern in the enemy's movement that contradicted our tactical projections. I was correct, but acted without authorization." Chen nodded approvingly and moved on to a Lumari, whose crystalline form displayed unusual asymmetry. "You modified your fighter's navigation system against regulations. The standard algorithms were too rigid," the Lumari replied, light pulsing through its facets. "My adjustments allowed for micro-jumps the system would normally prevent as too risky." One by one, Chen addressed each pilot, highlighting the very infractions that had marred their service records. When she finished, she moved to the center of the hangar where a holographic display activated. "What I'm about to share is classified beyond any security protocol in the Alliance," she began. "The existence of this information would normally be restricted even from your council members, but circumstances leave us no choice." The display showed a three-dimensional rendering of the void entity, but unlike the Alliance's scans, this image revealed complex internal structures hidden within the darkness. The Devourer, as you call it, isn't a singular entity, but a dimensional rift that's achieved semi-sentience. It feeds on energy and matter, using what it consumes to expand its presence in our reality. The display zoomed in, showing swirling patterns that resembled neural pathways. These are decision matrices, effectively the entity's brain. They anticipate responses based on observed patterns and adjust accordingly. This is why conventional attacks fail. The entity processes information exponentially faster than your tactical systems. General Vectra stepped forward. "Then how do we fight something that can outthink our best strategies?" "We don't think at all," Chen replied with a fierce grin. "We rely on something the entity cannot process, human intuition." The display changed to show 20 small craft unlike anything the Alliance had ever produced. They resembled elongated teardrops, with organically curved hulls and minimal external features. "These are Fireflies, hybrid craft combining your technology with human designs. They carry no conventional weapons, no standard shields, and their navigation systems are entirely pilot-controlled with minimal computer assistance. Murmurs of confusion spread through the assembled pilots. Each Firefly contains a quantum resonator tuned to a specific frequency, Chen continued. Individually, they're harmless. Together, properly positioned, they can create a dimensional interference pattern that will force the entity to contract. And then what? Asked one of the Vectran pilots. We've seen it absorb the energy of entire stars. Then we give it something it can't absorb, Chen replied. My ship carries the last remaining sample of a substance we called Prometheus fire, a particle accelerated beyond normal physical laws. It exists simultaneously in multiple dimensional states, making it impossible for the entity to process. Chancellor Zorn's crystalline features clouded with concern. This sounds dangerously experimental, Captain. It is, Chen admitted. The theory is sound, but implementing it against an entity of this size has never been attempted. What are our chances of survival? Asked the young Mershai pilot. Chen met his gaze steadily. If everything goes perfectly, maybe 20%. For the mission success, significantly higher. Rather than dampening morale, her honesty seemed to strengthen the pilot's resolve. These were individuals accustomed to taking risks, to seeing possibilities where others saw only danger. The void entity will reach the Centauri system in 36 hours, Chen concluded. We launch in 12. Until then, rest. Meditate. Do whatever centers your mind and spirit. When we face the devourer, I need you operating on pure instinct. As the pilots dispersed, Chen found herself approached by Archivist Quell, his ancient eyes shining with unasked questions. You've been studying me since I arrived, Archivist, Chen said gently. What is it you wish to know? The archives speak of humans as teachers, explorers, diplomats, Quell replied, his voice quavering with emotion. Yet you are a warrior of exceptional skill. Were the records wrong? Chen's expression softened. We were all those things, and more. Humanity contained multitudes, artists and soldiers, philosophers and engineers, dreamers and pragmatists. Our greatest strength was our diversity of thought. And now, how many remain? Chen looked away, her gaze distant. Enough to carry our legacy, if today's mission succeeds. Not enough to ever return to what we were. 12 hours later, 20 Fireflies and Captain Chen's command ship departed Helios Prime. The small fleet moved with unusual formation patterns, constantly shifting positions in ways that seemed random but followed some deeper intuitive order that defied standard tactical analysis. As they approached the Centauri system, the devastating scale of the void entity became apparent. It had already consumed the system's outer planets and was steadily advancing toward the inhabited worlds. All pilots, maintain calm silence from this point forward, Chen instructed. Trust your instincts. Remember the resonance patterns we discussed, but don't overthink them. Feel your way through. The Fireflies accelerated, breaking from their formation and spiraling toward the entity in seemingly chaotic trajectories. Alliance observers watching from a safe distance were baffled by the approach, seeing no discernible strategy in the pilot's movements. The entity reacted immediately, extending tendrils of void energy toward the incoming ships. But for every movement it made, the Fireflies responded with even more unpredictable maneuvers, diving, spinning, reversing course with impossible speed. They're dancing, whispered Archivist Quell as he watched from the command center on Helios Prime. Like the ancient stories of human rituals. Inside her command ship, Captain Chen monitored the quantum resonance levels generated by each Firefly. The pilots were performing beyond her expectations, positioning themselves precisely where needed without explicit instruction. Their movements created an intricate web of energy that began to pulse in opposition to the entity's natural frequency. For the first time since it had appeared in Alliance space, the void entity's expansion slowed, then halted. Its amorphous form began to contract, dark tendrils withdrawing as it attempted to adapt to this unfamiliar attack. Phase 1 complete, Chen announced, her voice tense with concentration. Commencing final approach. Her command ship, previously hanging back from the engagement, now accelerated directly toward the center of the contracted entity. At its heart, a pulsing core of antimatter became visible, the dimensional anchor that held the entity in their reality. Alliance observers gasped as they realized Chen's intention. She was piloting directly into the maw of the entity, a suicide run by any logical assessment. Captain Chen, your vessel can't withstand that level of energy. Chancellor Zorn's voice came through emergency channels. The resonance pattern is working. We can find another way. There is no other way, Chen replied calmly. The Prometheus fire must be delivered directly to the core. It's the only way to collapse the dimensional rift permanently. As her ship penetrated the outer layers of the entity, alarms blared warning of structural integrity failures. Systems began shutting down as the void energy seeped through shields designed to repel conventional forces. In these final moments, Captain Ilara Chen activated her ship's internal recording system, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding her. Final log of the Earth Defense Force. The Prometheus Protocol has been initiated. To whoever recovers this message, remember that sacrifice and service of life is never wasted. Humanity was just one thread in the cosmic tapestry, but we gave everything to preserve the larger pattern. Her ship reached the core, systems failing catastrophically as she manually triggered the release of the Prometheus fire. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then, a burst of impossible light erupted from within the void entity. Not the brightness of a star or even a supernova, but something more fundamental, as if reality itself were being rewritten at a subatomic level. The entity convulsed, its form collapsing inward at impossible speed. The 20 fireflies broke formation, accelerating away at maximum thrust as the dimensional collapse created shockwaves of distorted spacetime. When the light faded and sensors could function again, Alliance observers found themselves staring at empty space. The void entity was gone. 19 of the 20 fireflies had survived. And of Captain Chen's command ship, there was no trace. 3 days later, a solemn ceremony was held in the Grand Council chamber. Representatives from across the Alliance gathered to honor the human who had saved them all. Chancellor Zorn stood before the assembly, his crystalline form gleaming in the restored illumination. Captain Ilara Chen gave her life to preserve our future, he declared. In doing so, she demonstrated the quality that made humans unique among all species, the willingness to sacrifice everything for an ideal, for the continuation of life itself. As he spoke, Archivist Quell approached with a small container. Inside lay a single data crystal recovered from the edge of the dimensional collapse. Before her final mission, Captain Chen entrusted this to me, Quell explained. It contains coordinates to the dimensional pocket where the remaining humans wait in stasis. She believed that with the void entity destroyed, it would be safe for our civilizations to reconnect. A murmur of amazement spread through the chamber. Humans had not vanished forever. They had been waiting, watching over the galaxy from beyond normal space. We have been given a second chance, Chancellor Zorn announced, to rebuild our alliance with the species that sacrificed everything to protect us, to learn from their unique perspective that sees possibilities where we see only impossibilities. The 19 pilots who had flown the Firefly stepped forward, each changed by their experience. They had operated on pure instinct, had broken free from the patterns of thought that had defined their civilizations for millennia. In doing so, they had touched something profound, the spark of intuitive creativity that had once been humanity's greatest gift. Captain Chen told me that humanity's true legacy was not their technology or their knowledge, said the young Mershai pilot, his scales now shimmering with newfound confidence. It was their willingness to defy logic, to take impossible leaps of faith, to believe when all evidence suggested otherwise. As the ceremony concluded, the coordinates from Chen's data crystal were entered into the Alliance navigation systems. A mission was already being prepared to make contact with the human enclave, to invite them back into the galaxy they had sacrificed everything to save. And somewhere, in the space between dimensions, Captain Ilarid, Chen's consciousness drifted. The Prometheus fire had not destroyed her as expected. Instead, it had elevated her to something beyond conventional existence. She could perceive multiple realities simultaneously, could touch the very fabric of space-time. In time, she would find her way back to her people. But for now, she watched over the Alliance with satisfaction, knowing that humanity's greatest gift had been passed on: the courage to face the impossible and the creativity to overcome it. The fire of humanity burned on, not just in the remaining humans who would soon awaken from their long slumber, but in every Alliance species that had learned from Chen's example. The galaxy would never be the same. It would be better.